Hi everyone, my name is Brandon Thomas and welcome back to my Automation Journey series. If you missed last week's video, I introduced myself as a recent IT graduate who's stepping into a world where automation is key for me to learn and understand. In addition to this, I also talked about what Ansible is in itself and how it essentially is able to replace manual repetitive tasks with scalable automation. Now, in this video, I would like to talk about the why behind Ansible and essentially why do people use it and why does it matter in the real world. And I like to break it down into three different things. And that's because Ansible is simple, Ansible is powerful, and it's also agentless. So first, I'll start off with the simplicity of Ansible. And I think this mostly stands out due to its markup language called YAML. Now, you might be asking what YAML stands for, and that stands for yet another markup language. And the way I would describe this is that YAML is essentially human readable data format that Ansible takes to write your playbooks. So you could think of them as like checklists for automation. And essentially what this is that you can define tasks like installing packages, starting services, or updating systems in plain English syntax. So I don't want you to get confused on thinking that this is some complex programming language like Python or Java. It's simply you write out what you want to be done, and Ansible will take those instructions and figure them out for you to apply the task that you're asking for. So that's what I really think makes it so simple and easy to use. Now, just because Ansible is defined as simple does not make it weak. Ansible is very powerful in itself, and you can control everything from one single machine using SSH to connect to different things such as your network devices or your servers. So instead of just logging into each system one by one, you can pretty much update everything all at once, saving you a lot of time throughout the process. Now, although this is useful in itself when you're managing the handful of different machines you might have, let's imagine for a second that your environment's bigger than just 5 to 10 different systems. Let's say it can go up to maybe even 1,000. Suddenly your organization and your accuracy becomes much more critical. And this is where tools such as IPAM and CMDB can become really handy for you. So with IPAM, this stands for IP address management, and this pretty much helps track every IP address across your network. So this is a very handy tool in terms of tracking IP addresses, keeping everything organized and structured. And with CMDB, this stands for Computer Configuration Management Database. And essentially, it stores real-time details about your system. So this can be things like your names, your configuration, maybe even like installed software or anything else in regards to that. So overall, these things can help with the organization and accuracy as you scale up in terms of what you're automating. And this leads into my next point, as the single source of truth is also a very important thing. And instead of relying on spreadsheets or old notes, Ansible looks at a central trusted database like your IPAM or your CMDB for the actual state of your systems. And that means the actions that Ansible takes are always based on live, accurate data. So your automation doesn't just run, it runs correctly. It syncs with your real world environment, and that's what makes Ansible not just convenient, it makes it truly powerful at its scale. So the last main point I'd like to get into is that Ansible is also agentless, which I think is a pretty huge deal. If you've ever installed any type of software before, it can be really tedious and time consuming. So the fact that you don't need to install any type of software on the machines you're managing is a huge time saver. Just imagine trying to roll out a small agent program to 1,000 different devices. It would be very time consuming, add overhead, and potentially create security issues as well. So the fact that Ansible avoids all of that makes it really efficient, lightweight, and just clean, and it saves you overall a bunch of time and resources with the agentless features that it offers. Next thing I wanted to talk about briefly was I started using the Ansible command line interface. So within the interface, there's a bunch of different things that you could address or talk about. So I might do that in another video, but I just kind of want to talk about the purposes of the command line interface and some of the things that it offers. So first thing it does is it runs your playbooks. So you can use certain commands within the command line interface to actually execute and run your playbooks to make sure that they're running properly and there's no issues upon that. You can also check your inventory where you store your groups of different hosts, and you also can execute one-off tasks as well. I would say that it's powerful, but it doesn't take a lot of time to get comfortable with. And once you learn some of the basic commands, you really start to feel how much control and power you have in automating. And it's honestly just really nice to get into and dive into, even with me just having a couple days under my belt. So to wrap things up, I feel like this week I essentially just learned the why of Ansible. And I think it was really important to understand this because it's cool to understand what Ansible offers and the certain things it does, but to understand why do people use this, why is it something that companies and enterprises gravitate towards is also very important. So for me to understand that Ansible is simple, it's powerful at scale, and it's agentless for maximum efficiency, I think these are important things to understand before I can move forward into deeper concepts within Ansible. So next week, I think I'll talk more about the Ansible architecture and what's actually happening behind the scenes when you run a playbook. What are modules? What are plugins? What are inventories? What are roles? How did they fit in all together with each other? So once you unpack the architecture of these things, everything else will start to make more sense. And then you can start moving into deeper stuff within the command line interface and ultimately get closer towards using the actual platform in itself. So, yep, this is what I've learned this week. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.